most recently, the department asked Ms. Sampson, my client, to assist with talking to Antoine about peeing in corners. And this happened over the last week or so, because Antoine has now taken to peeing in corners at night. You'll hear that the concern is, as Antoine stated, that he's afraid to just get up at night because he doesn't have any light bulbs in his current room right now. And so for whatever reason, the light bulbs have been removed from his room. And so he's scared basically to get up and go to the restroom. And so he's resorted to peeing in the corners of his room. Again, we have a placement a potential placement in Ms. Clemens. You'll hear that she's willing to be placement for Antoine. She's known him. In being placed with Ms. Clemens, Antoine would be returning to his community. He would be returning to the same school that he started off in. He would be able to see the friends that he had made while he was going to Brown here in Smithville. And as the department's response has stated to our motion, the concern is that obviously he will be returning to that same placement, that he would be running away to his mother, his grandmother, and those sorts of things. You'll hear that Ms. Clemens is ready for that sort of challenge. She understands that Antoine has behavioral issues. And I would ask that the court take judicial notice that the child does have a right to be with family, especially a sibling who is also in care, in foster care, under the Children's Bill of Rights. And also, I'd ask the court to take judicial notice of the department's policy that does encourage contact between children and their community and their siblings. And again, you will find that Ms. Clemens is very, very, very open, and she's very willing to be a support for Antoine.
Okay, and before I call on the other counsel, let me make something clear about why I allowed the hearing and what I saw. So one, in my mind, it wasn't about Ms. Clemens' abilities. First, as you know, before the court allowed a hearing, I wanted to know that Ms. Clemens was willing. I'm familiar with her. We've approved her before. She's that's not necessarily the problem. How it relates to a home study, not necessarily the problem. But one, I was concerned with, is she willing? Because it came from mom, not from her. So I wanted to know she was willing. Then two, I wanted to know that this wasn't overwhelming for her, even if she is willing, because sometimes you're put in these situations and you can get overwhelmed. And then I wanted to know that, because regardless of all those things that are policy and about family members and in your community, the fact was that Antoine has always needed very specialized attention. And that's why it was thought that he would be better off getting that attention rather than in a home where he wasn't possibly getting specialized attention. And then you had the issue of safety for the other kids that would be in a home. And so more than just mom wanted to intervene in this question of placement and put the child with someone she wanted, is that really better, one, for Antoine, and is it better for the other children that would be in that home? And then if that is the case, how does that fit into our long-term, put it in the big picture of where we're going with this case? So just for clarification of what I saw when the motion was filed and we asked for everybody's response. Mr. Rosenblatt, would you like to state the department's position?
The department's opposed to another placement change for Antoine. He's had several in this case due to behavioral issues or other issues that were outside of anyone's control. This would just represent another change of his placement. Currently, he's about to start therapy. Any change in placement would require a change in therapy again. Also, for his educational progress, it'd be another change. And as the court just noted, there is a need. This child has a special need for specialized attention, and we believe in changing the placement where he's going wouldn't necessarily be able to give that special attention to Antoine. Also, because he has acted out in certain ways, in certain violent ways, we are concerned about the other children in the house and the safety. His sibling is a newborn child, so he's especially vulnerable. So if there were any outbursts or violent outbursts, it could potentially put the other children at risk. We are opposed, and I will let the caseworker get into the details as far as the department's position.
Mr. Dillon?
Your Honor, I'm also opposed to any change in placement at this time. Antoine's been having, every time he has a visit with his mom, he acts out and has anger issues that they have to be addressed. And we'd even like to see those visits limited so that Antoine can work through the therapy he needs and hopefully not have to address them. No, the guardian ad litem, CASA, has a strong opinion on this as well. And so we agree with the department to oppose any change in placement.
Okay. Ms. Waters, I believe that prior to your coming on to the case that, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't previous counsel file a jury demand on behalf of mother?
He did, Your Honor, and I have visited with my client over that. And what she instructed me at the time when I was first appointed to this case was that she did not want to move forward with the jury trial.
Okay.
Now, I have not visited with her about that since then.
Okay, so I would prefer, for the sake of clarity on the record, that, so we're not going to address that necessarily today, but would you, if that is her desire not to request a jury, and I think I'd raised the question before, is that Mr. Anderson, I believe, had on the same day, maybe, filed both a motion to withdraw stating that he had a conflict of interest and a jury demand. And it seemed to me like, well, if he had a conflict of interest, you couldn't necessarily do anything further on the case. And so should that jury demand stand? And I think that's what we ask you to address, Ms. Waters. So if it isn't her desire to have a jury demand out there, then would you either file something that either one says that was not her desire to ever file for a jury demand, and so therefore that one is ineffective, or that you waive jury, in which case the other parties have to waive jury too?
I will, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. And we won't address that. That's not, but I do want to know where we're headed. It has some impact on what we're doing. Okay. Ms. Waters, would you like to call any witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. I call Cassandra Clemens.
Okay, Ms. Clemens, would you raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you swear the testimony you give in this call will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may proceed.
All right, Ms. Clemens, you've heard what the judge said, and he's familiar with the other children in your home. And have you known Antoine? Ms. Clemens, how long have you known Antoine?
I've been knowing him since he was a little baby. Yeah, I didn't see him around town with his mother, his grandmother, you know. And when he was with them, he was a pretty good kid, you know.
Okay. And so when you did see him, how much time would you say you spent with him on each occasion?
maybe just a few minutes, a couple of minutes, or like a half an hour. Because sometimes I used to see them at the pantry, and I would talk to Antoine because I would always call him my little baby, and he would always say, "No, I'm not your baby. I'm my mama's baby," because he was so cute, and I would always mess with him. But as far as knowing him, I don't. Mhm.
Okay. All right. And so you've heard the judge's concern about his behavior. Have
Yes,
you
ma'am.
spoken with your husband about taking Antoine into your home?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And knowing that he has all of these behavior issues and special needs, is that something that you're still willing to take on, have him in your home?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And now you do have two other children in your home, is that correct?
3.
All right, three with DeMonte. All right,
Yes.
and how old are the other girls?
I have 11-year-old and a 7-year-old.
All right, and so if Antoine were to live in your home, he'd be your fourth child. Do you think that you'd be able to give him the sort of resources and attention that he may need, given what you've heard about his special needs and behavior?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a mother, so that is a cakewalk to me.
All right. And so knowing that this case is going to go to trial in 2 months, I don't want to have you committing into adoption or what have you, but what is your commitment towards Antoine?
My commitment will be a long-term commitment to him, even though, whatever the judge may decide or the courts may decide, I will still be willing to help in any way that I can. So I'm in it for the long run.
All right. And so whether this case ultimately turns into a permanent conservatorship case or a termination case, would you be still willing to care for Antoine well past those sort of end results?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now with regards to Antoine, if he were to come live with you, what school would he be going to?
To Brown Primary.
All right. And as far as him being back in the home where he was removed from, or the community that he was removed from, how far do you live from Gloria, from Gloria's family, specifically her mother?
I don't know how far it is, but I'm off of Upton Road, and they're in the town of Smithfield. So I'm in the country part of Smithfield. Mm-hmm.
The country part. So tell us a little bit, where is it that you're living? What does your home look like?
I live in a duplex, and it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. No. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and I live in the country out here off of Upton Road.
Okay. And so if you're not really close to Gloria's mother, is that right?
I'm not.
Okay. And now I had asked you to write a quick statement, a short statement indicating to the court whether or not you wanted to serve as placement, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you in turn sent to my office a very long email. And was that something, why did you feel the need to write that statement?
Because God had put it on my heart, as far as the person that I am and the love that I have for anybody's child, I would accept this child as my own and would take care of him and make sure he's safe, make sure he gets whatever he needs, and meet all his needs, not just to be a placement for him and don't do anything for him. To help him through his life, because one of these days he's going to grow up and he's going to be a young man. And I want to be a part of him being great in our community, as far as getting him a job or going to college, and going beyond life, that we expect them to go. So I feel that, when I wrote that letter, that was the truth of my heart. So I just gave it to you.
All right. Thank you. And so as far as Antoine being back in his community and in the school that he was going to before he was removed, do you feel that that would be in his best interest?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I feel that he would
Okay.
be in his best interest because he will also be with his sibling, his one and only sibling that he does have. And them being apart, it doesn't seem right to me because I wouldn't want my kids apart. If I was in the situation, I would want someone to take care of all of my children, not just a one or two, you know.
Right. And so you've had the opportunity to supervise some of the visits between Gloria and DeMonte, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And now as far as Antoine, have you had any opportunity to supervise those visits?
No, ma'am, I haven't.
Would you be willing to supervise those visits if necessary?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And now, as far as the other girls that are living in your home, do they have visitation with their biological parents?
Yes, ma'am, they do.
All right. And are you supervising those visits as well?
Yes.
All right. And so do you feel that given Antoine as an additional burden on you, was that something you would be willing to take on, knowing that you have these other children in your home?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Your Honor, pass the witness.
Mr. Black?
Yes, Sherman, thank you. Ms. Clements, where do the girls go to school?
I have one that's in Smithfield Junior High, and I have one that is in Smithfield Elementary.
And where is Brown Primary?
Brown Primary is in between the junior high. This is in the center of town, really. Off of, what is it? MLK, sort of like that way. I can't think of that street that it's really on.
And who takes the girls to school?
They ride the bus.
And do you think Antoine knows where his grandmother lives?
That I do not know. But
Is there a major highway between your house and the grandmother's house?
Yes, Highway 95.
You think it'd be pretty dangerous if he ran away and attempted to cross that road?
Oh yeah, that would be dangerous.
What do you know about Antoine's behavior?
Well, as I was told that he was acting out, he was doing a whole lot of acting out. And also he had an incident with a small child that was in the home with him, and that the caregiver was letting the baby cry. And I guess the baby was crying too long. And there was an incident with him and the baby. There was also an incident that I was told that he's in a home with no light bulbs and no toilet paper, and he's not free to do anything, just as far as going to the bathroom or turning on a light.
So have you been told in these acting out or this incident where he was physical with another child?
Yes.
And what plans or protections do you have in place if Antoine attacks the girl or attacks the newborn?
Oh, we have grounding. We have things that you just say if he has an Xbox, PlayStation, or whatever, that's taken away. There's no TVs. We're on a strict thing around here. So,
but what plans do you have in place? Those were all reactive. That's after any damage. What do you have in place to prevent or to help prevent physical attacks?
Make sure I give him a lot of attention to make sure that there's nothing like that going to happen here. you know.
And you have you have three other children in the house at the same time.
Yes.
Do you care for any other children?
Yes, I care for my grandchildren too.
Okay, and how many
Two.
grandchildren do you care for? So there's,
I-
in addition to the ones you said, there's two more?
I have 2 grandkids that I care for.
And that's in addition to the 2 girls and DeMontre.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So now we're talking 6 children?
Mm-hmm.
Total? Okay.
It's more than that because I have 11 grandkids altogether
And how regularly do they come over?
every weekend.
And do you have, if Antoine needs to go to therapy and treatments, who would be taking him?
My husband.
And does your husband work?
Yes, he does.
And what are his work hours?
He works at night, overnight. Mm-hmm.
So he has a night shift hours?
Mm-hmm.
And where does he work?
He works for Tyson Foods.
And how, do you have any special training or education in dealing with children who might have special needs?
Yes, my granddaughter, Aviana, she has autism. And we were all trained in that way, you know, if she has an outburst, what to do, you know, a lot of stuff. I've also had my oldest son, he had ADHD. So I had to go through a lot of, you know, different attitudes and things like that, outbursts and stuff like that. So I pretty much know what to do if that ever happens.
Okay, so you have some education on it and then experience.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Pass this witness.
Mr. Dillon?
Ms. Clemens, while your husband's working at night, are you the only adult in the household?
Yes,
And so are all the kids monitored in some manner?
they sleep at.
Well, I understand that, but if one of them got up in the middle of the night and walked
Yeah.
out the door, how would you know that?
We have cameras all in our house.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And does it send some sort of alert or notice to you?
Uh-huh.
Does it wake you up to know
Yeah.
what?
It's on my phone, so it alerts me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as far as Antoine, you're not really familiar with him and his recent behaviors over the last year.
No.
Okay. How is it that you came to be recommended as a potential placement for Antoine?
Damian Thompson, he was a friend of the family, and he came to me and asked me would I be able to help them take care of DeMonte. And I said yes, because they knew that, you know, I care for the girls. And I said yes. I said, I asked him, I said, what is going on? He said, well, you know, the CPS is in our lives and we're going to need support, the support system. So that's what I was thinking, you know, that we would help them do. And it turned out to be that, you know, the baby was taken from them.
Okay.
So, and
Have you ever seen DeMonte and Antoine interact at all?
no, because Antoine wasn't there when she had the baby. Mm-hmm.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay.
Ms. Wattis, do you have any further questions?
I do, Your Honor. Ms. Clemens, when you said you have all of your grandchildren over, do they sleep at night with you?
Oh, no, they come and visit.
Okay. And so if Antoine were having behavioral issues, was starting to act out, what would you be able to rearrange your schedule so that those grandchildren would not be in your home?
Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. Mhm.
Okay. And are you willing to learn about the sort of behavior issues and problems that Antoine might have?
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
Okay. And I mean, you're coming in this with eyes open. You know that if he's not an easy child, it's
Right.
going to be tremendously difficult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is going to involve changes in your life, in your grandchildren's life. Uh, do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
Okay. And you're willing to do that again, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, as far as any special training for dealing with Antoine's issues, would you be willing to ask the department for that sort of guidance?
Oh, yes. Yes. Mhm.
All right. No more questions for Ms. Clemens, Your Honor.
Do you have any other witnesses to call?
Yes, Your Honor. I'll call Ms. Bernard, Hillary Bernard.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear the testimony you give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
You may proceed.
All right. Ms. Bernard, so I just want to go over a couple of incidents that Antoine has had with his current placement. There was an incident back in December of 2020, so shortly before we filed our motion, where Antoine wanted a bath, but the placement wanted to give him a shower. Is that correct? Do you recall that?
That is correct.
All right. And so
Yeah, that was the 17th.
okay, the 17th. And for one reason or another, him wanting a bath versus a shower ended up with the placement actually calling the police, EMS, and then Antoine actually ending up in Dell's Children's Hospital, correct?
Antoine started punching walls. He was also trying to hit the foster parent with a plastic bat. Because she is a foster home, punching walls is self-harm, so she called emergency services.
All right. And so all of this originated with him just wanting a bath, correct?
She was trying to get him to have like a bath in the evening, and he reacted to that, yes.
All right. Now, at some point, Ms. Sampson also indicated to you that that Antoine was asking for toilet paper because he didn't have toilet paper at his placement, correct?
So that was the other weekend and the other week during a visit. Antoine never spoke to me directly about it. Neither did Gloria. I believe they spoke to Sandra. I've been into the foster homes many a time.
All right.
There's
And
never
so-
been a shortage.
And so at that time, Antoine was asking Sandra, who's the visitation supervisor, for toilet paper to take home, correct?
My understanding is from Sandra and the notes that she wrote is that she had toilet paper in her car and Antoine asked if he could have some.
Okay. And so do you know if she gave him toilet paper to take home?
Mhm.
She gave him one roll.
All right. And now, also a couple of days ago, you approached Ms. Sampson for help in speaking to Antoine about peeing in corners. Is that correct?
I did. He has over the last couple of weeks been routinely peeing in his room. Actually, they also found feces in his room. He is not just doing it at night. When she talks to him about it, he says he just wants to.
Okay. And so obviously that was of concern to you. Did Ms. Sampson help in talking with Antoine?
I actually did not stay for that visit, so I could not answer that.
Okay. And so what did Gloria indicate to you that Antoine had said he just doesn't have light bulbs in his room?
Gloria has not spoken to me about that.
Okay. And so if if Antoine doesn't have light bulbs in his room, is that something that concerns you?
I've been in his room and played with him in his room. He had lights in there the last time I was in his room, and that was like December.
Okay. And so have you talked to Antoine as to whether or not, whether or not he has the light bulbs, whether or not he's scared at night?
I can talk to him. It has not been brought up to me. When I talk to Antoine, he never talks about anything about light bulbs.
All right. And so would you say that, well, actually, has a home study been done on Ms. Clemens' home?
A home study was done on Ms. Clemens' home in regards to DeMonte's case.
All right. And what is the result of that home study?
That would have been a past home study because DeMonte has been placed there.
So was there any problem with her home study?
I've not seen the home study. That was with my other caseworker and my supervisor.
I see. And so are you familiar with Ms. Clemens?
I met her one time when I dropped off DeMonte after a visit.
All right. And so Ms. Sampson has requested for some time that Ms. Clemens be the placement for Antoine. Is that right?
Yes, since the DeMonte was moved.
All right. And so have you done any sort of investigation or initiated any sort of contact with Ms. Clemens since that request was made?
Not at this time, because at the time my coworker was working with her in regards to their other home study in DeMonte. Okay. And he also spoke to her about being placement.
All right. So since Ms. Sampson has requested Ms. Clemens as a placement, I guess the question is, why haven't you considered her as placement for Antoine?
Antoine's already had 4 placement changes at this point in time. We didn't want to have to move Antoine again and do another placement change. We're trying to get him into therapy.
Okay. And so he hasn't started therapy. He hasn't had a therapist at his current placement.
He is starting with Bluebonnet.
Okay.
He was supposed to start last week and it's starting this week.
All right. And so if Antoine is moved with Ms. Clemens, he'd be returning back to a school where he knows the kids, where he knows the teachers. Is that right?
I believe so. He used to be in Brown Primary.
All right. And so he'd be he'd be back to seeing his friends, correct?
Correct.
And do you feel that wouldn't be in his best interest?
I'm sure Antoine would like to see some of his friends. Antoine is getting some reports at school that he is fighting with peers, so that would also just be a concern.
Okay. And so in returning to Smithville, Antoine would be back in his community. He'd be back to the church where he went to. He'd be back to just everything before he was removed. Do you think that would be a positive for Antoine?
It's hard to know at this point in time. See how Antoine will react when he goes back there.
Okay. And so when a parent requests a change in placement to a fictive kin, for example, in this case, what is your next step once that parent has made that request?
I spoke about it with my supervisor. We already had a home study being processed for that home with the other case. So I didn't need to request another home study.
Okay. So as far as you know, has that home study been completed?
Yes, it has.
Okay. And was it approved?
Yes, it was. For DeMonte, yes, it was.
For DeMonte. But again, the decision to not place Antoine was what specifically? Because what was the reasoning?
I couldn't answer the exact reasoning, and that was my supervisor's choices at the time. We had the final was supposed to be last year. We got that extension. We have been reluctant to change him just because he has had so many moves, and we're trying to maintain him being in one place so we can get connected to services.
Okay. And so if that was your supervisor's decision, you asked the caseworker, is that still your position that it would not be in his best interest to come back to his community?
I have concerns for Antoine being so close to his community. It's hard to know how he's going to react.
Okay, and so you're familiar with the Texas Children's Bill of Rights for children in foster care, correct?
Correct.
All right, and so Your Honor, I have asked that the court take judicial notice of that document. I imagine the court has agreed to take judicial notice.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection.
I will.
All right, and so I am going to share my screen, Ms. Bernhardt, or maybe I'll just ask you, under the Bill of Rights, that the kiddos in foster care, they do have a right to be with their family. They do have a right to be, especially with a sibling who is also in foster care. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right, and
Or we
even
maintain at least sibling visits, which he has.
right, correct. And so even under the department's policy, the department holds a placement with fictive kin, with family in very high regard, correct?
Correct.
And so it is the department's policy that children in foster care should be placed back in their community, back to what they can perceive as normal, given their foster care circumstances, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so as far as DeMonte and Ms. Clemens, do you know whether the department has any concerns with DeMonte being with Ms. Clemens?
Our biggest concern is on the 3rd of December, Antoine tried to smother another child younger than him that was 18 months old. He tried to smother him initially with a pillow, changed his mind and pushed the child's head into the couch. Obviously that child was younger than Antoine. So we are concerned for DeMonte's safety.
Okay. And so you heard Ms. Clemens, she's willing to take the training. She's willing to learn about what Antoine needs for his behavior and other issues. Would the department be able to help her in familiarizing herself with those problems?
We would always help any placement get connected to services like we do with all other placements.
All right. And so what services would someone like Ms. Clemens be able to get through your department for Antoine?
So we would initially help her try and get connected with services for Antoine. And then we would look into any other trainings if she needed them that were coming up, or we can also provide therapy.
Okay. All right. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Nissenblatt?
Yes, Your Honor. Regarding the Children's Bill of Rights, the department also has to take into account safety of the children in its care. Is that correct?
Yes.
And has Antoine been demonstrating violent tendencies?
Yes.
And is that concerning for the department?
That is concerning for the department.
And where he's placed now, how many children are placed in the home?
There are no other children in that home with him at this point in time.
And what was the department's understanding about the relationship between Ms. Clemens or the Clemens family and Antoine?
Very minimal. I believe she knew him from the community, as Smithville is very small.
So to categorize her as fictive kin, is that a proper characterization?
Very loose. I mean, fictive kin is normally friends, close friends of the family, if we were not able to find a relative placement.
Okay. So but regarding Antoine, it's not correct to call the Clemens fictive kin to Antoine.
Not my understanding.
Okay. And how old is the sibling DeMonte?
He's a newborn. He's under 1.
Would he be able to defend himself if Antoine got violent with him?
No,
Would he be able to defend himself if Antoine tried to smother him with a pillow?
no,
Are those concerns the department has to take into account?
though, yes.
And is the department giving the siblings visits and contact with each other?
Yes, they have a joint visit every Tuesday at this point in time.
And you mentioned the department's concerned with the number of placement changes with Antoine, is that
Yes.
correct? And what number,
Yes,
if placement changed now, how many changes would that make for this child?
This would make the 5th placement.
Okay. And this case is particularly old, is that correct, in the scheme of CPS cases?
Yes, it should have finished last year.
Okay. And what happened that the case had to get continued?
That was due to the mother's attorney changing.
And is the mother, has she remained drug-free throughout the case?
She has not.
Pass this witness.
Ms. Waters, I'm sorry, Mr. Dillon, do you have any questions?
Just briefly, Your Honor, Ms. Bernhardt, the visits that Antoine and DeMonte have, those are with Gloria, where they all 3 visit at the same time?
That is correct.
And in those visits, is there a focus on one child at the mother places, on interacting with one child over the other child?
I haven't supervised all of Gloria's visits, so I can't answer exactly, but there's generally more focus on the baby.
And does Antoine have any reaction in those visits to Gloria interacting with the baby?
Your Honor, I'm going to object on relevance. We're focused, I believe this hearing is specifically for a change in placement, not necessarily addressing the mother's visitation.
And Your Honor, I'm not addressing the mother's visitation. I'm addressing the interaction between the 2 brothers.
The objection's overruled.
So is the interaction, does Antoine have any reaction as to his brother getting more attention from his mother?
He tries to get his mother's attention.
How does he do that?
Antoine's very ADHD. He will just be jumping up and down, running around, trying to get her attention.
And is there, as far as his current placement, are there any concerns with the current placement about Antoine's safety?
No, she's working as hard as she can with Antoine's behaviors.
And is it a good placement at this point in time?
It has been a good placement.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Waters, do you have any further questions of this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. With regards to Ms. Bernhardt, with regards to the current placement, does it concern you at all that Antoine is complaining that he has no light bulbs? That's why he's afraid to get up at night, that he doesn't have toilet paper, that he's ending up at Dell's Children's Hospital?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the question. It mischaracterizes the testimony. Ms. Bernhardt said that those issues were not brought up to her.
Right.
So Ms. Juarez is using her own questions to support that.
I am, Your Honor. I'm asking her if that would concern her.
Overruled.
That would the objection to speculation.
Again, Your Honor.
The objection's overruled.
So Ms. Bernhardt, did those sort of incidents concern you?
I'm going to object to the incidents because they didn't happen according to Ms. Bernhardt.
Ms. Bernhardt. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I believe my client has been trying to log in to the Zoom. Just 1 second.
All right, Jennifer, if you could let her in.
Hello?
There. Hello, Ms. Sampson. We're in the middle of a hearing, so if you would just mute yourself while the other witnesses are testifying.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. And Miss Bernhardt, with regards to the placement, you said the foster mom is working on things on how to address those, the issues that Antoine is having. What sort of things is she doing?
So she talks to him about his behavior, asks whether that is something that he thinks people would like to see, you know, those kind of trying to give consequences of your behavior. Is that a good decision? Is that a bad decision? Those are the kind of things that she does to work with him.
All right. So is she taking any special, is the department helping her with any special classes or anything like that to help her deal with Antoine's issues?
She is a foster parent, so she has also completed all of the trainings to be a foster parent, and she works closely with her foster agency as well.
All right. And so if she needed those services or additional services, the department would be able to support her and help her with those trainings, correct?
Yes.
All right. And you heard Ms. Clemens, she's willing to take those classes, those trainings, take that direction from the department. Would, again, the department be willing to help her with those services?
Yes.
All right. No more questions, Your Honor.
Okay, do you have any further testimony to present?
I do not, Your Honor.
Mr. Nisenblatt, do you have any testimony to present?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Dillon?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Waters, any brief closing?
Yes, Your Honor, just very briefly, again, you're very familiar with the case. You're very familiar with Ms. Clemens and really with all of the parties. I think what you hear from Ms. Clemens is that she's willing to learn. She's willing to be that supportive servant, that support for Antoine. And we have filed her statement with the court, and we'd ask that the court take judicial notice of her statement. In her statement, I find it interesting that Ms. Clemens does state that she's willing to go that extra mile with Antoine, not for Antoine. And so as she's indicated to you, she wants him to be part of the community. She wants to put him back in or help him back, transition back into a community where he's comfortable. She's not expecting a perfect child when he comes back to, or if he is placed with her home. She's not expecting that. She's willing to take whatever supportive trainings that the department is willing to give her and is providing to the current foster mom. I find it interesting to hear that the foster mom is talking to Antoine, which is what Ms. Clemens said she would do. I don't see a need. I don't see a problem with her taking the additional courses or the additional trainings, as she stated. If Antoine were to come back to Smithville, he would be back at his old school. He would be back with his old friends. He would be back in a community that he is familiar with. Obviously, he's had a lot of adjustment issues in all of the other foster care homes. He's in this new foster home where he hasn't even begun some services like therapy or anything like that. So if he's basically starting at step one in that foster care home. So if Ms. Clemens is able to provide him with those services, if she's already being that support system for DeMonte, my client and I don't see why Antoine shouldn't be able to be placed with his sibling, with his brother, and especially back in a community where he is, that he had before he was removed. I understand that the department's position is that Antoine is needing a lot of individualized special attention. But I mean, Your Honor, you heard what the testimony was, that the foster mom is talking to him. I don't think that that's any different than what Ms. Clemens would be doing. With that said, the biggest concerns are obviously that Antoine is having to ask his caseworkers or supervising caseworker for toilet paper. That he has the need to ask for somebody to give him toilet paper. I understand that Ms. Bernhardt said she has not inquired from Antoine as to whether or not he does have light bulbs, but he's peeing, he's doing number two in the corners of his own room. I think that is something that obviously has to be a concern, and it is a concern for my client. I want to know if anybody has actually asked Antoine, why are you peeing? Do you have light bulbs? Do you have toilet paper? Do you have what you need? And so what we're asking, Your Honor, is that, again, Ms. Clemens, who has passed muster with DeMonte, that she be given that opportunity to be that support for Antoine as well.
Mr. Nissenbach?
Thank you, Your Honor. In regard to a lot of these allegations, they are coming from the mother, and that's concerning because the mother has sabotaged over and over again and has continued to use drugs, which unfortunately has Antoine is the one who has to carry that burden, which has led to placement changes and his behaviors. I think it's not just talking to Antoine that's the issue. There's other kids in the house. There's violent tendencies. We can't undo if Antoine smothers the younger sibling. We can't undo if he were to inflict physical harm and damage to the other children. That's a risk, and that's a concern of the department. We also have, I think the ad litem noted that his behaviors of violence ramp up when after he visits with mom. Those are concerns. Where he is now, he's the only child in the home. You can watch him, you can mitigate those risks. And that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to keep him away from his home or his community, but rather we have to make a decision to mitigate risk, not only for his own safety because he's self-harming, but also the safety of the other children involved. And that's why at this time we're opposed to the placement change.
Mr. Dillon?
Your Honor, I think one of the big concerns here, I have no doubt that Ms. Clemens is a wonderful mother and is providing for the children that she has in her care, and is in a really good place in her life. But the concern is with Antoine and his needs. When he's having these visits with his brother and his mother, and the baby brother's getting all the attention, he starts acting out. And the acting out carries over long after the visitation is over. And the big brother doesn't get as much attention because he doesn't need as much a lot of times. And that may cause a little bit more jealousy from big brother and causing his actions. I just don't think it's a good idea to put Antoine in a position where he's going to be in a home with other children that he might potentially hurt, considering he has a track record of trying to do that. So I'd be opposed to any placement change for him.
Costa?
Hi, Your Honor. Costa is also opposed to the placement change at this time. Costa would like to go on the record in saying that when Costa does visit with the placement, I'm going to kind of hit on some of the main topics that were talked about, the light bulbs and the toilet paper. Costa talks with the child alone in the home, and I asked to do so in different rooms in the house each and every time. Several of those times have been in his room, where the light has to be on because it is in the evenings when I talk to him after school. So the light bulbs are not a concern for me. I believe that his physical needs are being met, and all of his basic needs are being met in that home. Costa has concern that the urinating and the defecating in his room often happens after the visits with mom. And the placement does spend time with the child talking about why that might be happening, why he does that. They even talk about what that does to the home and this, why it's nice to have a clean space and a nice space to live in and something to be proud of. I do know that I've witnessed that conversation. In regards to the violence tendencies that the child does have, the placement very well could have asked the child to been removed from her home after that incident. And she did not. She actually had the other children removed from her home because she was concerned about the placement disruption and another placement taking place in this child's short life and short time and time in foster care, another placement. So while she could have had him removed for those behaviors, she elected to remove the 2 other children from her home because she knew that that was what was best for him and to create that stable environment for him. And then CASA also has concerns after talking with the child, the placement, and the educational providers for him currently. Mom has gone so much as to say just very recently that he was moving this weekend, and the child has packed his bags and said that he was moving this weekend because his mother told him he was moving and not going home to that placement. And that's a concern for me. I had to verify with that placement that the judge is going to make that decision, and that has not been happening. And he went so much as to go to the school and to say that he wasn't coming back to this school, all prior to this hearing happening today. The educational provider that I spoke with multiple times since the last hearing by submission, behaviors do tend to increase in the home and at school after visits with mom. And the educational provider yesterday said, you know, it is my hopes that he does not move. This placement does more for him than I can get out of some birth parents that I work with on a daily basis. And the improvements that she has seen with him educationally have gone leaps and bounds. He started the school year with not being able to read, and now has advanced into, he is on target with his classmates and reading and fixing to pass the next benchmark in the reading levels. And so I fear another disruption and another placement move would start that all over again for him. And as in regards to therapy, I think all of the professionals here can agree that there are long wait lists in regards to getting treatment and counseling services started in our area. And she has been on the wait list, got the intake appointment, and she has actually stayed on top of those appointments happening for him. Unfortunately, it appears and looks like that it just happened after the Dale's Children incident, but that is a service that has always been on the path forward, moving this child forward and getting the services that he needs. So for those reasons, CASA does believe it is in the best interest that he stay in the current placement and stands behind the current report that we filed with the court in January in regards to the placement staying the same, and would ask still the consideration of the courts to review the visitation process as well.
Okay. If we were to fast forward to a final hearing, then all of these things could be on the table. But we're too far down the road. We're too close to having a determination. We need to know what we're doing with mom's rights, whether mom could, what the trier of fact will determine, or whether there's an agreement. But what will we decide about mom's rights? Termination or no termination, or some other permanency? Well, are we moving toward having this child in mom's home? If not, what would be the long-term placement? Is there a potential adoption placement? Antoine has more needs than many other kids, and it's true to think of the safety of other kids, but whether or not Miss Clemens could be a long-term placement for Antoine, is that consideration is it's premature today. But to do a short-term placement, knowing that we still have the potential that very quickly going to to some other decision by the trier of fact would be against his best interest. We need to look at what we're doing in the long term and then work backwards. The court has previously found that this is a good placement. I still believe this is a good placement. The concerns that were raised are hearsay statements that are not borne out by either CPS or CASA. So there's no reason to move him in the short term without a game plan for what we're doing in the long term. And to do so would be against his best interest, and the relief is denied. Mr. Nisenblatt, would you draft a short order stating that we considered this and it has been denied?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. This
Your
concludes-
Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, knowing that we're going into trial, would the court consider a mediation, or will that be mandatory knowing that this case is going to trial?
Whether you have a formal settlement conference or you have a mediation, everybody talking about this would be a good idea. Mr. Nisenblatt, is there any objection to doing it by a formal mediation?
I no, except that we are a little crossways with some of the new Bastrop County policy. But I have no problem talking to Ms. Juarez or any of the parties regarding a resolution.
Why don't y'all talk and then just give me, without going into detail about the, because I wouldn't and shouldn't be involved in the specifics of your negotiations. Let me know how it is and whether you recommend a formal mediation or not after you've all talked.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll try to have something to you by end of business on Friday.